Most people believe discomfort comes before awareness. They think something feels wrong, so they look inward. But often it happens in reverse. You feel stable, functional, certain. Then you notice something, a pattern. Maybe you recognize that your confidence sharpens when you feel threatened, or that your independence increases when intimacy gets close, or that your anger arrives faster than the situation requires. You see it, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. This is where disruption begins. Before awareness, the system runs quietly. Reactions feel justified, emotions feel proportionate, choices feel natural. There is no internal friction, because there is no observer interrupting the process. Awareness introduces an observer, and the observer changes the equation. The moment you recognize a behavior as protective rather than authentic, its authority weakens, but its activity increases. Psychological systems are built around continuity. If a behavior has helped you avoid shame, avoid rejection, avoid helplessness, it becomes integrated, not as a strategy, as identity. Identity is not just who you think you are. It is the structure that keeps your internal world predictable. Predictability feels safe, even when it limits you. So when awareness reveals that something central to your identity is compensatory, that your certainty hides doubt, that your self-sufficiency hides fear, that your intensity hides insecurity, the system registers instability, not intellectually, biologically. The nervous system does not evaluate growth, it evaluates threat, and anything that destabilizes continuity can feel like threat. This is why discomfort often appears after awareness, not before. You notice your avoidance, and suddenly you feel more anxious. You recognize your need for validation, and suddenly you crave it more intensely. You identify your defensive anger, and your irritability increases. This feels like regression, but it is activation. The system has been exposed, and exposed systems tighten before they reorganize. Think of it as homeostasis. The body resists temperature shifts. The mind resists identity shifts. When equilibrium is disturbed, corrective forces activate. Emotion intensifies. Thoughts accelerate. Doubt grows louder. Not because awareness was wrong, but because the structure was questioned. Awareness is invasive. It inserts observation into automation, and automation depends on invisibility. Before awareness, your patterns operate as truth. After awareness, they are revealed as mechanisms. Mechanisms fight exposure. This is the phase most people misinterpret. They assume the discomfort means they destabilized themselves unnecessarily. They assume clarity made things worse. But clarity did not create the instability. It revealed it. When the system defends itself, it does not announce what it is doing. It increases intensity, more certainty, more emotion, more urgency. It attempts to restore its previous balance. And if you do not understand this, you will mistake defense for truth. Discomfort after awareness is not failure. It is structural resistance. The mind is trying to preserve continuity, even when continuity no longer serves you. The disturbance is not proof that you broke something. It is proof that something was touched. And touched systems respond. When a system feels exposed, it does not weaken. It intensifies. Awareness interrupts automation, and interruption creates instability. Psychological systems are built around continuity. If a reaction once protected you, it becomes efficient. If a belief once stabilized you, it becomes rigid. If a behavior once reduced pain, it becomes identity. So when awareness questions that identity, the system responds, not with logic, with escalation. You notice your avoidance, and your urge to escape increases. You recognize your need for validation, and your craving sharpens. You identify anger as defense, and your irritability spikes. This feels like regression. It is reinforcement. The system is attempting to restore equilibrium. In biology, equilibrium is preserved through corrective responses. The mind operates the same way. When identity feels unstable, emotional intensity rises to compensate. Intensity feels convincing. Stronger emotion feels like stronger truth. Sharper thoughts feel like clarity. But escalation is not evidence. It is defense. The counterattack is subtle. It may appear as urgency, a sudden need to decide, to react, to return to certainty. Certainty restores structure. Before awareness, reaction and identity were fused. You were your anger. You were your independence. You were your certainty. After awareness, there is distance, and distance destabilizes cohesion. When cohesion weakens, systems consolidate. They narrow interpretation. They reduce complexity. They amplify familiar narratives, because familiarity feels safe, even if it is limiting. The backlash can feel stronger than the original pattern, because now the system is operating under perceived threat. Threat increases activation. Activation increases intensity. And intensity feels true. This is where many people retreat. They assume awareness made things worse. They assume self-examination destabilized them. But awareness did not create the instability. It revealed the structure holding it together. The system defends what has kept it intact, even if what kept it intact is no longer necessary. When the counterattack begins, it is not proof of failure. It is proof that something structural was touched, and structures respond when touched. If this perspective resonates, like the video. Subscribe if you want more. No pressure, just awareness. The most dangerous part of the backlash is not the intensity. It is the interpretation. When emotional noise increases, when certainty hardens, when old reactions return stronger, most people draw a conclusion. I was better before. This is the misreading. After awareness, the system activates defense. Defense creates intensity. Intensity feels convincing. And convincing emotion reshapes perception. You begin to question the awareness itself. Maybe you overanalyzed. Maybe you destabilized something unnecessarily. Maybe self-examination was a mistake. This thought is not neutral. It is protective. The system is not only defending through emotion, it is defending through narrative. It begins rewriting the meaning of what happened. Instead of seeing discomfort as resistance, you see it as damage. Instead of seeing escalation as defense, you see it as proof of weakness. This interpretation restores stability. If awareness is the problem, then abandoning awareness feels safe. Notice what happens here. The system protects itself by convincing you that growth is harmful, that clarity caused the chaos. But clarity does not create structure. It reveals it. And revealed structures resist exposure. When identity is questioned, there is a temporary gap. The old explanation feels unstable. The new explanation has not solidified. Gaps feel unsafe. Humans prefer flawed certainty over undefined transition. So the mind fills the gap quickly, often with a simple conclusion. This was a mistake. But this conclusion reduces complexity. It converts a structural shift into a personal failure. That reduction restores coherence, and coherence feels calming. This is why the backlash is often misread as regression. Regression suggests movement backward, but what is happening is exposure plus resistance. Before awareness, the system operated smoothly because it was unquestioned. After awareness, it operates loudly because it is challenged. Loud does not mean stronger. It means threatened. Threat amplifies signals. Amplified signals distort perception. Distorted perception reshapes meaning. And meaning determines whether you continue or retreat. If you interpret the backlash as proof that you were more stable before, you will return to invisibility. If you interpret it as defense, you remain observing. Observation is destabilizing at first, but retreat reinforces the original structure. Misreading the backlash protects the system. Reading it accurately destabilizes it. There is no dramatic signal announcing this decision. It happens quietly. A subtle shift in interpretation. A quiet internal sentence. I made this worse. That sentence feels honest, but it is often defensive. Awareness disrupts equilibrium. Disrupted equilibrium produces discomfort. Discomfort invites interpretation, and interpretation either stabilizes growth or stabilizes defense. The backlash is not the signal to retreat. It is the moment where meaning is being negotiated, and what you decide it means determines whether the system remains unchanged or begins to reorganize. If you do not retreat, the system does something else. It recalibrates. Not immediately, not dramatically, but gradually. After awareness, after escalation, after the misreading phase, there is a quiet window, a space where you do not react as quickly. You still feel the impulse, but there is distance. Distance is destabilizing at first, then it becomes structural. This is the difference between suppression and stabilization. Suppression forces behavior down. It tightens control. It demands compliance from yourself. Suppressed systems do not reorganize. They compress. Stabilization is different. It does not attack the old pattern. It observes it, repeatedly, without panic, without urgency. The defensive reaction still appears. Anger still rises. Avoidance still tempts. Certainty still hardens. But you are not fused with it. Fusion is what gave the system power. Observation removes fusion, and without fusion, intensity fades faster. The nervous system adapts to repeated non-reaction. When a defensive pattern activates and nothing catastrophic follows, the threat signal weakens. This is how systems reorganize, not through force, through exposure without collapse. At first, the discomfort is sharp. Then it becomes tolerable. Then it becomes familiar. Then it loses urgency. The system learns something new, that awareness is not destruction, that distance is not danger, that identity can shift without disintegration. This is the quiet phase people rarely talk about. Nothing dramatic happens, no breakthrough moment, no sudden transformation, just less intensity, less urgency, more space between impulse and action. And in that space, the system is no longer defending. It is updating. The old pattern may still exist, but it is no longer automatic authority. You can feel anger without becoming it. You can feel doubt without collapsing into it. You can feel the urge to retreat and remain. That is stabilization, not suppression. When the system defends itself, it is protecting continuity. When it stabilizes, it integrates awareness into continuity. This is slower than most people expect, because nothing explodes, nothing breaks. The defense simply becomes less necessary. Discomfort after awareness was never proof of damage. It was proof that something structural was touched, and structures can reorganize. If this helped you see your own system more clearly, consider liking the video and subscribing. Not for motivation, for observation.